All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest edition of Energility, Connecting the Dots. This is our series of webinars focused on various aspects of energy efficiency and renewable energy. And in previous webinars, we've covered things like incentives, conservation, efficiency, but it always comes down to how an organization owns and executes on energy as a strategic asset to be managed versus an expense to be paid. So today's episode is going to focus on green teams, and I'm sure you'll find it valuable. And thank you for joining today. My name is Richard Alexu. I'm the Manager of Strategy and Business Development here at Energility. And with that, let me turn it over to my colleague, Justin Kale, who's the Director of Opportunity at Energility. And Justin, take it away.
Great. Thanks for your time, everybody, and tuning in here as we talk about green teams and sustainability teams. I think one of the things that's important, especially when you're talking in the energy space or in the construction industry, or as we are consultants, one of the things that we find we do a lot of is translating for folks. And some of that is just kind of setting the tone for what do these terms mean, or what is what does that acronym mean? So when folks talk about a green team, they may be talking about a group of individuals that are like-minded, that have a common purpose, and they're going after, ways that an organization can be quote unquote green. Sometimes it's really holistically focused on sustainability, whether it's, the recycling and how the business is purchasing products, and kind of the whole waste, the life cycle and waste stream of those products, looking at energy efficiency, conservation, how the organization is, reducing their environmental footprint. It can even have an element of, economics and, how is the organization reducing their operating cost and being fiscally responsible, or in the religious space, a lot of folks talk about the faith-based actions related to either creation care or being good financial stewards of resources. So, there may be a theological reason for a green team to form as well. And so, it's really about getting a wide viewpoint, cross-functional representation on the team, however your organization defines it, whether it's a green team, whether it's a sustainability team, or whether it's maybe even just a facilities team that's focused on all those aspects. How do we manage the money? How do we manage the energy reporting? How do we manage the environmental impact of our organization? So, these are some of the things that we have seen be helpful purpose statements or defining criteria for organizations, using activities like educational workshops, again, kind of making sure that folks have a common understanding of what they're looking for in the building, or what are common practices or best practices, or maybe even better than best practices, and how to procure products like copy paper in the office, or reduce the use of copy paper, and then things that need to be recycled. One term sometimes that's thrown out there is net zero, and those are targets and goals, and we'll talk about those here in a minute. But figuring out how do these activities and these actions, even events like a treasure hunt, build towards a relative mindset of continuous improvement and meeting a goal for the common organizational good. So some of the benefits, again, related to what's important to the organization, prioritizing whether it's cost savings, that's the common denominator a lot of times in decision making, or the environmental impact, reducing carbon footprint, or moving towards a 2030, 2040, 2050, some sort of environmental footprint reduction, or maybe they're focused on trying to retain employees. Actually, we have a case study that we'll talk about here in a few minutes where the employees are really driving the organization to adopt some improved sustainability practices. And really, when it comes down to it, what we see as the bottom line benefit of a green team is, there's a culture of continuous improvement that as you're making improvements, I got my first really wealth of experience in the commercial real estate world with an organization that really valued energy efficiency and sustainability long before they were buzzwords in the uh, current vernacular. And one of the things they looked at is those were good business practices, and Green Team can help your business or organization drive sustainability and continuous improvement that helps you mitigate your rising costs or helps you reduce your environmental footprint. So it's good to say, hey, these are the things that the Green Team is, or here's the good benefits of that team, but how do you get started in the first place? And I think it can come from what we've seen as be kind of the ends of the spectrum would be, you have a really passionate person or someone that's really focused on a goal. Maybe that's part of their day-to-day job responsibility, or they're a passionate person in a volunteer role within an organization, and they're really championing that idea to form the Green Team. One of the sayings is you can go fast, alone, or you can go farther with a team. And one of the ideas would be, that champion getting, additional folks that have different viewpoint and also have a common goal. A good example of that would be a faith organization that we've been involved with in the western side of Ohio that has a really passionate group of folks. And one of them is admittedly fiscally focused, and his goal and his role in the team is to be able to manage cost and also be able to bring that perspective. And then there's a couple folks that are really interested in the facilities, and they want to see this building and this organization persist into the future, beyond them and as a legacy into the future. And then yet they have another person that's really focused on data, and he's really passionate about making sure he's got data to be able to share both cost, both environmental and energy consumption, and also identifying trends in what's coming in the future. So it's really getting that diverse group of stakeholders involved, because it really starts with the people and the different perspectives, whether it's a plant manager and a maintenance manager, or whether it's again, volunteers with different viewpoints or different perspectives. Those are some ways to get the Green Team started, because it really starts with the people. And then, with any expectation of improvement, as the saying goes, what gets measured can be managed. And so, one of the acronyms that's used a lot of times in goal setting is SMART. Don't just say, hey, we're gonna form a green team and we're gonna do green things, or hey, we're gonna form a sustainability team and we're gonna improve our footprint. Well, what does that mean? Be specific about it. Is it, hey, we want to get to net zero? Hey, we want to host an event that is considered zero waste. Hey, we want to, educate and make folks aware. What are some of those very specific things that are, again, events or specific actions? And, how do those things get measured? How do they get tracked? Do you have an online dashboard? Do you have a person who's accountable for that data? Do you have a tool internally to use? We use a program called Energy Stewards that matches real well with the Energy Star Portfolio Manager. And quite frankly, Portfolio Manager is a free tool by the US EPA that's online and accessible for adding some building data, adding energy data. They've expanded to include water data. and they have ways that you can track goals and track actions. But there's ways to be able to track that stuff, because then once folks see, hey, this is achievable, this could be, rewarded, whether that's through, employee compensation, or whether that's through, the acknowledgement of the green team's efforts in a volunteer role where folks aren't looking for compensation, they're just looking for, organizational improvement. And, setting these things to be over time, whether it's quarterly, annually, to reach a certain target, and then kind of regroup and figure out what's the next goal, what's the next objective of the green team to accomplish. Because it could, again, simply be that building the culture and continuous improvement, where this is always part of the process. But part of the process means every once in a while you evaluate and then you update your goals and objectives. And, we've talked to a lot of manufacturers that are being driven by their consumer base. They want to see them reach, net zero decarbonization, some sort of big, hairy, audacious, big, ambitious goal. But at the same time, if the organization has adopted things like continuous improvement, they may be reducing their energy consumption by a couple points every year, and that may help them meet a very specific, measurable goal. But if an organization has never done that before, maybe they tackle something big and ambitious, because we've found is, with some supporting data in the research world, as well as what we see with clients, both small businesses and nonprofits and larger commercial enterprises, is when you identify and you manage it, most folks are saving, 3 to 5% of their energy use just by keeping track of. We just had a small house of worship come to us a couple of weeks ago, where they were tracking things, and their simple way to manage that was, hey, they just kind of shut off the spigot for programs if they didn't have the money, and they could only pay the electric bill. So, there's ways to be able to get a team together and get focused on, hey, how do we manage this? And as Rich said earlier, not just make it an expense to be paid, but, an asset to be managed. Um, some of the simple things, folks like, one of the uh, concepts, I guess you would say it, in the commercial world of retail, Staples gets it right. They have the big thing that you can visualize, the easy button. And I've even heard folks say that with what we do in terms of energy audits and building energy plans, and translating complicated technical stuff into, usable, actionable items, is, hey, how do you pull out the easy button, right? So people want something easy, but they also want things that are low cost. And sometimes there's an alignment there, and sometimes it does take a little bit more of a complicated strategy to be simplified to make it actionable. But the details behind it are a little more complicated. And an energy audit's one of those things that, sometimes folks hear that term, and we've had a number of folks call us about getting an energy audit, and they don't even really know what they're asking for. They just simply know, hey, I need an energy audit. So, and energy audits can come in different scales and sizes, from, simple consultation to, more detailed engineering analysis. And so an energy audit can be a low cost thing that can be done. We've defined it as building an energy plan. But within that energy plan, there's big capital investment items that are analyzed, and there's also low cost actions, things that can be done simple. One of the things I do whenever I visit a client site or a prospective client site, when I'm walking up to the door, is the light from the inside of the building greeting me at the door? Is the weather stripping bad? Is there a gap there? Those are things that are easily visible, but if you're not always looking for them, you may not be aware of that. And so, that's just an example of a quick win. Do you drive by the building at night and you see a bunch of lights on? Again, quick win, common sense, not always commonly applied. And some of that is just the behavioral aspect of building that cultural awareness of, these are the actions we take, these are the habits we build. And that continuous improvement can be a real bedrock to, building a solid organization that wants to be sustainable, or make a change, make a difference in the future. And as we talked about data a few minutes ago, tracking progress is important. Free tools like the Energy Star or our energy storage program are low cost ways to be able to engage with data, build some reports, be able to take some actions based on those, be able to really at the end of the day, building that data is about being able to run reports and ask questions. Hey, why did things go up? Why did they go down? Hey, we had this goal and we did these actions. We expected it to go down. Why did it go up? Or hey, it did go down. Did it go down as much as we expected? Again, those are things that can be answered with the right data. And making those decisions part of that SMART goals is measurable and achievable. And again, we find that a lot of folks, once they start paying attention to it, just by building some awareness, can make some reductions. So trainings, workshop, communication, those concepts are really, kind of the key, the health of that green team or that sustainability team or that facilities team, making sure that they have the knowledge that they need to, what are they looking for? A good example, I would say, is maybe parallel to creating a green team or a sustainability team, but it's a plant manager that we engaged with a couple of years ago, where his regular activity was walking through the plant and identifying compressed air leaks. Every morning when he walked through in the plant, that was his, one of his top things that he was listening for while he was walking through and observing his surroundings. But just having the knowledge and awareness, to be able to look for things like that, during downtimes, weekends, off hours, shifts, being able to just simply listen for compressed air leaks. A lot of times in manufacturing facilities, that's fairly obvious if you're dialed in and you're looking for that. But a lot of times folks are in the mindset of, hey, I got to get to the next task, or hey, I'm focused on this current project. So, building awareness, getting folks educated of what are they looking for. If you walk in a furnace room and you see some um, PVC pipe, for the exhaust flue, identifying, hey, that does match up with a condensing furnace or a high efficiency furnace versus, other equipment that may be lower efficiency, understanding what you're looking for. And there are tools out there, whether it's online workshops, kind of the current societal methodology is, you can learn almost anything watching YouTube, right? But you have to be careful of what your source is. And I would say that when we talk with folks, one of the things we try to encourage is, asking questions and also being attentive and listening so that we can answer their questions, because we find some of our work is technical, but some of it is just the practical application of sharing knowledge and helping folks understand so that they're aware of what's possible. Um, and sharing success stories is important because, it can become a dry and mundane topic if everybody's just hearing, hey, the green team did this, the green team did that, but they don't really connect the dots, right? They're not understanding, oh, wait a minute, there's been a progression here. Let's find something to get excited about. I guess one example that I could share directly is a house of worship in Athens, Ohio. This was over a decade ago. Put in a new boiler, upgraded their boiler, and they made a huge leap in their Energy Star score. It was like in the 30s, and they jumped up into the mid 60s. And on this 1 to 100 scale, once you get to 75, you can be Energy Star rated even for a house of worship. And so they really took that seriously and started beginning to replace lights with LEDs. They started paying attention to thermostat settings. They started getting folks involved in being aware of what was going on with the operations of the church. And so actually it was interesting to see over a 4 or 5 year period of time, they made these small incremental changes. And, Craig Foster, our lead engineer, who also doubles as a deacon in the Episcopal Church, he went down and preached at this congregation's service on the Earth Day weekend back in, I wouldn't say it was 2018, but one of the successes he was able to share with them is all these incremental changes had then got them to the point where they were 75, and they were one of only a handful of houses of worship that have been Energy Star rated, since the program, which goes back over 20 years. So it's, again, a way to be able to, communicate that success. And those folks were very interested and very, you know, aware of what they had done. They'd climbed this large mountain with a big action of replacing the boiler, but then they also took it upon themselves to do incremental items that really contributed to their success as well, and they were able to share that in a larger forum. And that kind of gets us to the point of case studies and some of the success stories that we have been involved in and have been privileged to be part of. And really, there's best practices that are published. Again, lots of resources, whether it's on the Energy Star website. We share lots of things with folks in our reports, whether it's level 1 or level 2 reports, or as we're working with them on projects. One of the ones we wanted to highlight here, this is an example of a small group of folks that got together here over about a little over a year ago, an organization called Faith Communities Go Green, who does a lot of amazing work in the Southwest Ohio region, a 10-county region around the greater Cincinnati area. And their Faith Communities Go Green is a subset of the Green Umbrella organization, and they focus on working with houses of worship of all faiths and denominations, and they started getting together some interest, and I can share a little of the backstory. They started getting some interest in a grant that they were going to apply for, and ultimately decided to pivot away from the grant, but realized there was a lot of momentum that was built from getting folks involved and getting folks encouraged about what the possibilities might look like, because as we've been involved in a lot of these grants and incentives, building a plan is really a key element, prerequisite to start and apply for grants. So what they did is said, hey, we're going to pivot away from going after this right now, but we're going to continue building on this work where we've got people excited. And so they got a lot of folks together, and they built this coalition of volunteers that I believe now there's over 40 folks that have been involved, 30, 40 folks that have been involved in this effort, where we went down on a couple different occasions to work with them and conduct some workshops where we trained them. Folks ask us all the time, hey, who's your competitors? Hey, if I don't hire you, who would I be hiring? Well, the answer doesn't come up very often, that it's our competitors might be volunteers. Well, what we do is we share a lot of knowledge with folks, and so we actually worked with Faith Communities Go Green to actually train folks in what we do, energy auditing. We just simply showed them, what are we looking for when we walk into the furnace room? What type of lights would be a good fit? What's the difference between a retrofit and a replacement? What's working with programmable thermostats. So again, some of the stuff that may be common knowledge for some folks, but it isn't for everyone. And so what we did is help the volunteers understand what to look for. And now they've been able to go out and do, dozens of energy audits that are then able to start supporting some of those low cost actions, where they don't have a lot of cost involved, and they've got volunteers that are now knowledgeable to go into facilities and conduct and facilitate a level 1 walkthrough. And they're not prescribing that it's an engineering report of any sort, but they're simply coming to us for some recommendations or guidance from time to time, and they are able to do some pretty successful level 1 reports and get folks interested in what the possibilities look like to be able to make a difference in a 5,000 square foot house of worship or a 50,000 square foot house of worship. And Rich, I'm going to ask you to opine on the last one here. I know you have a client that you build a relationship with, and we've done some work with. You want to share a little bit of their success as a larger manufacturer?
Yeah, sure. I really loved working with this group. It's a perfect example of everything good that we're talking about today. It started with a phone call from an HR rep at a company. And that's not the typical person that reaches out to us, but she was calling on behalf of a team of volunteers with cross-functional representation of like-minded individuals who wanted their company, and again, it's a large industrial, they wanted their company to focus more on efficiency and didn't feel like they were seeing enough of that and wanted to do something about it. It's an employee-owned company, so they all had a vested interest in doing this. So that there was engagement there from the beginning. And as we started working with them and continued through the process and audited their building and discussed reports and our findings, we watched as their engagement grew and it got management attention. We built an ROI for their investments in efficiency. It gained them funding to make the right investments. And the fascinating part was watching some of the assumptions that they had when we first started talking either get validated or proven to be a little conservative in where they thought they were, or a little overly ambitious compared to where they were. And we watched their eyes get opened. So it was fascinating. And you don't know what you don't know until you actually study it, measure, and ask some serious questions. So those discoveries and insights led to an energy plan from us, which is their roadmap to achieving the goals that they had when they first reached out to us. So great example. There's plenty more out there, but exactly how, exactly how we like to help the clients that we work with.
Yeah, that's good point. And I think, as I recall from the report presentation, it was a pretty sizable conference room because they had, what, 10 or 12 folks that were
Correct.
involved
That's
in that.
right. That's right. And senior level as well. So
yeah, that's a good point too, because the diverse cross-functional element can be, different departments and different responsibilities. It can also be, in larger organizations, different levels, at the plant level or at the organization level, are also going to have different viewpoints. I remember even having a quick conversation with the procurement guy, and that kind of, represented the range from the HR to procurement and facilities, and like you said, even some folks in the C-suite. So
yeah,
good,
yeah, for sure.
good example.
Yeah.
And I think that really, what we summarize here is, it can be volunteer-led organizations. In this particular case with Faith Communities Go Green, it's a organization with a group of volunteers that are leading volunteers. So it can be, and we kind of took it as the train the trainer method that's done in other industries, but large manufacturers. So it can be done across the spectrum of organizations. So as we're committed to do with connecting the dots, just a quick recap. Importance of a green team is building that cultural awareness and being able to identify things that are important to the organization. Again, whether it's waste streams, whether it's energy consumption, environmental impact, and then there are low cost things that can be done. Measuring data, tracking use, as well as things that can be done within facilities that may not always be commonly applied. And Green Team can really be the start of that organization, setting it in motion to continuously improve and make adjustments in the positive. And it can also be part of the culture building that is already in place, and it's one of the resources to improve the organization. And I think one of the things that Rich said best is, energy is not an expense to be paid, but rather an asset to be managed. And when that's kind of an underlying goal of a green team, a sustainability team, or whatever the definition of your organization's team is, when we look at energy efficiency as a key benefit to lowering cost, lowering environmental footprint, and making improvements in the organization. Energy is not an expense to be paid, but an asset to be managed. And, plans and energy audits are great low-cost ways to get started with doing that, build that roadmap. So I think at this point, we're kind of wind down with our time here today. Really appreciate everybody's engagement, and coming to listen to us. And certainly if you have questions, we love to connect with folks, talk more about what we do and what we know, and share that as well. So, got my LinkedIn connection or email or phone number there. Rich, you want to wrap us up with any closing comments?
Yeah, sure. So thanks. As Justin mentioned, if you have any questions about today and this presentation, or if you'd like a copy of the slides, or if there are any topics that you'd like to see us cover in future episodes, shoot us an email. You can scan the QR code for Justin, or my email address is richard@energility.com, justin@energility.com. Reach out anytime. Remember, you can always find our videos online here at YouTube. Just search for Energility and the catalog will come up. Our next webinar will be Thursday, January 16th, and it's going to focus on C-PACE financing. And if you're wondering what exactly is C-PACE financing, tune in next month to find out. But the short story is it's a very advantageous way to help finance your investments in efficiency. And we'd love to tell you more about it. So we look forward to seeing you here next month. We wish you and your families the best of the holiday season, and we'll see you again down the road. Take care, everybody.